Hi everyone. Okay, for layers part 2 of 4, we are going to do a little more than show you some shapes and give you a sense of how layers stack upon each other. In this case, what we're going to do is add these 5 parts you can see here to this background here and make a bit of a scene. So that's kind of some of the more fun side of things you can do with things like GimpShop and Photoshop is stack things together to make a scene. Or some sort of compose some sort of situation or photograph, etc., etc. So the idea of layers again is that they stack as if you were putting things on top of a table, or let's say a plate, or let's say a stack of paper. But the only difference is we're looking down on the stack. So think of this as a tabletop on the screen, and there's nothing on it. But when I put something on top of it, it will appear here as a layer above. And if you can see where my cursor is, I'm in the layers panel, layers dock, if you want to call it, or deck over here. It would appear above this as a new layer. So the idea here is that we want to put things on top of this, and each little piece becomes a layer on top of that tabletop. So the first steps along the way are to basically cut these images out. So, for example, I've selected the rope. I used basically scissor select tool for this. You can choose to use this or the free select tool. If you want, you don't have to go and do the complicated bit over here. You can actually cut your selection off at the end of the rope and just stick that end of that rope outside the scene. So you could stick it off to the edge here so that you can't see it, so that you don't have to worry about it. This gets a little complicated to cut out, but it is your choice. What we would do is cut that rope out, and we come over to this panel, and as you can see, I add a layer. I've already done all of this, so I'm going to bring you through what I did. So I added a layer here, and you can see it's a new layer, and then I pasted in the rope on the new layer and move that around a few times, got myself to this point here where you can see my layer has a rope on it. And if I toggle off the background, you can see the rope is there. And underneath the rope is what we're going to call the tabletop. Okay, so second selection was, and this I would suggest scissor select. It does give you a chance to select more jagged edge stuff. So I would strongly suggest you do that. I didn't do it on this one. I used quick select, as you can see, but I feathered my edges. That was just an option. It's not necessary, but I feathered the edges. I inverted the selection, deleted the background, and here's the inversion, and there's the delete. And then I cut out the actual, then you have to invert back, cut out the actual map. But in this case, all you really need to do is select here and edit to move it, and you're going to say cut. Okay, and then back over to this layer, and that's how I'm moving each thing. I'm selecting it, then I'm saying edit, cut on the selection. Make sure you're on the selected layer, and I come back to here, and I'm adding on this. I'm adding further steps. So as you can see, keep going and going and going, but we'll do this. We'll do this with you. I wanted to show you the first one, how it was sort of brought in. I'll do the other steps here. This is the background I want to move next, actually, not the map. The map will go after. So what I'm going to do here then is I've already selected it. As you can see, the lines are moving around the edge. I want to bring the whole thing in, so I'm just going to say edit, copy, or you can say edit, cut, and cut that out. Bring it over to here, and we're going to create a new layer. I can do that by right-clicking. I can do that by clicking on this down here. And I'm going to say, okay, there's my new layer. Now I want to paste my document in. I know it doesn't look like I'm on the new layer, but that's because the other two are visible. I can toggle that off if I really want to see what I'm doing. If I can work with those behind, they're not affected. I'm working on the active layer. That's why it's selected. I'm going to edit, and I'm going to say paste in place. Okay. And once we get that in place, I'm going to use my move tool, my scale tool first I'm going to use. So I can scale that down, and I'm going to move it up. I can put it straight. You see how that's over top of the rope? Eventually we'll adjust that. I can put it on as it is now and scale it down to something about that size. Remember that I'm going to actually take that map and put it on top of this. So right now, I probably want that to be a little bit tilted. So I'm going to use the rotate tool, and I'm just going to twist it around a little bit. I want a little bit of an angle on it. Okay, and we got that all in place. That's about where I want it, and I'm going to say rotate. So I brought those two in. Now we're going to add a new layer. Get set for the next one. So that's the pasted layer, as you can see. And we have our rope layer. We have our pasted layer. And as I look through them, it selects the actual layer, our pasted layer. And now we have our blank layer. And the blank layer, we're going to move the compass into. So once again, make sure you select it carefully. And just so you know, if you look closely, you have to select down here. I did a quick job for the purpose of this tutorial, but you can take your time, select those edges really well. Make sure you zoom in, do a better job than I did. And when done, we are going to edit and we are going to copy, come back to our layer, our active layer, and we're going to edit and we're going to paste. And there's our compass. Now we need to scale that down. So I'm going to choose my scale tool. And remember that the scale tool is for use on the active layer. The difference is up here you have a scale. Right here you have a scale image, and that'll scale your whole image. So we want to use the scale tool for the active layer. So I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to move it up. And I want to kind of offset my, remember this is a compass, so it shouldn't be as big as the rope. But I want to offset my rope. And I can always adjust the rope. Now, if this is in your way, just click this button to detach it from the canvas and move it wherever you want so you can get in there. I'm just going to put that. You see how this one is over top of these two? That is because it's the top layer here. It's on top of everything else. This is the stack if I was looking sideways. This is the stack if I was looking from an aerial point of view. So once you have that in place, hit scale. And I think I'm going to just do a tiny rotation on it too. I'm going to detach that, move it over. My tiny rotation will be to kind of move it just a little bit. And rotate this is the spot you're rotating from. So if I want to rotate from here, it would rotate around that object. So just to give you an idea, you move that dot around where you want it to rotate. So I'm just going to tilt it a tiny bit, just give it a little more character. And I'm going to say rotate. We're done. So I have one more image to bring in. That's the map. We want to create a new layer again. Add a new layer. Here we can see everything else. And my compass is on the pasted layer, so I'm going to move this above it. You can barely see the compass, but if I take these off, you can see it. It's just a small image up in the top corner here. I'm going to stay on my new layer, come back to my map, select the map, better than I did again, please. I'm going to say Control-C to copy it and come back to my new layer. And I'm going to say, and just to give you an idea what that looks like, I'm going to say edit and I'm going to say paste or Control-V. Okay. And there we go. We're going to scale that down. We want that to be a little bit smaller. And I do need to see the perspective of this because I want to put it over top. So what I did there was I went down to the pasted layer here with the paper on it. And I selected that to make it visible. Bring that down small enough. Now we're going to rotate with the rotate tool. And when you rotate with the rotate tool, you just touch it and move it. You don't have to do any scaling or any corner grabbing. Get that into kind of the same angle. And now I'm going to take the move tool and I'm going to move it over the map. And when I toggle the rest in, I'm starting to get a bit of a scene. And what we'd like to do now is we want to switch that rope around. The rope is behind it. I would prefer the rope was in front. So I'm going to take the rope layer. I'll have to enter this first. And take that rope layer. Once I get there. Okay, we're just going to move it. We'll do one more. a little bit bigger. Okay. I'm just going to do one more new layer just in case. We want to do one more thing on it. I think we'll do the paint that I'm going to do, and I'll show you what I mean. So we got that in place. And now we're going to move that rope layer, like I was saying, above the pasted layer, the paper. So just click and drag it up, and that puts it in front. We're also going to move the map down on top of the paper. Now the rope's above both. So I want to move that rope. So I need to select the layer with the rope on it, and I can tell with the yellow dotted line that I'm on the rope layer by choosing it. So make sure that layer is selected. Whichever layer you're editing needs to be selected, by the way. I'm just going to kind of put that in a little more perspective. Maybe I'm going to scale up a little bit too. It's a little bit smaller than rope should be. And I'm going to rotate it a little bit just to kind of get some of the, there we go. And we're going to move it back just to give a sense of, I don't know, ship desk or something. Now, these aren't all to scale, as you can see. They're definitely not to scale, but you can make those adjustments and be more careful. For the purpose of this demonstration with layers, I'm just showing you how to put things together. So for this next little bit, what we want to do is we're going to go to our empty layer on the top, and we're going to grab our brush tool. We're going to choose red, go to our tool options. And we want to make sure our size is quite small. I have mine set on 3, and we can zoom in a tiny bit for this if you want. And we're just going to draw, because this is a treasure map, so we do have to kind of make that look like a treasure map. So we're going to draw the journey, where they went, what they did. And you can do this any way you want. I'm just doing it this way. Why not? And we're just going to go through. Big X where we start. Maybe an arrow in where we begin. Sorry, big X where we end. And when I scale out of there, I have got a nice scene, treasure map, compass, rope, ship, captain's desk, whatever it is. This is sort of quintessential layers experimentation. So what started with, as you can see, we'll go back to, we'll go back to our main layer. Actually, we'll go back to this. Go back to our wood tabletop. We'll scroll up, and you can see what we started with. And when we're done, you can see what we ended with. Okay, so have fun with it. Check it out. See what you can do. The other thing we can do is there is something here in part 3 we're going to discuss a little bit further called layer modes. When we're done working with a layer, we can collapse it all. So that's one thing you should know. By right-clicking and merging visible layers or flatten image, we'll put them all together. So I'm going to do that now. Actually, what we could do before we do that is we can change this. So we can go in here and we can say dissolve, lighten, darken different areas of the layers. So I can choose one layer and lighten it, for example. It's a little too much, but I can change the opacity, etc., adjust that as I go. There's little tricks you can use to kind of enhance it here. So keep that in mind, but we're going to talk about these kinds of options, which are usually used for much bigger purposes when working with layers. And we'll get to that in the next layers, part 3 of 4. And just keep that in mind. If you want to add a little filter, though, for the time being, I'm going to collapse these actually to make them, just going to say flatten image. We'll put everything together. And up here, if I want to add a filter, I might do something like artistic, apply canvas, give it a nice kind of interesting look. I can change depth on that. I can adjust that any way I want, but it gives it a nice kind of finished quality. And everything is still pretty much legible as it is. And I'm going to say, okay, give me an idea of how that looks when I'm done, and have fun with it. That is quintessential layers right there.